One way to better understand how the pieces of hardware in a computer work together to make the computer work is to make an analogy between how a computer works and how an office works. So we're going to make an analogy and draw a diagram on the board between the pieces of hardware in a computer and an office. So we're going to start with the CPU, the Central Processing Unit. The CPU is the worker that carries out the instructions it's given by the programs. So in our analogy, our CPU is actually going to be a person who works in the office. Next, we're going to add the GPU, or the Graphics Processing Unit. The GPU is another worker, but this worker specializes in the instructions that have to do with creating images. So in our analogy, we're going to add another worker who is an artist. Next, we're going to add the RAM to our analogy. So our RAM is our random access memory. It's very quick to access, so when our workers want to go find some data or read some instructions that are stored in the RAM, it's very fast. It doesn't take them very long to look that information up. So in our analogy, that information is going to be stored right on their desk. So they're going to have a piece of paper on their desk that they're working at, and all they have to do is look at that paper, and that tells them the data or the instructions. Next in our analogy is our ROM, or our read-only memory. And this memory stores our boot up program and some of our device drivers, and it really can't be modified very easily. So it's sort of like instructions or data that has been carved in stone. Once you've carved it in the stone, there's no way to erase it. It's just there forever. So in our analogy, we are going to add a tablet of stone that has some information carved on it. All right, next we have our hard drive, or SSD, our mass storage device. And this stores tons of information, but when we want to access it, it's a little slow and tedious. So what that is like in an office is when you have a filing cabinet. So a filing cabinet has rows of drawers that can be pulled out, and when you pull out the drawer, then you have to dig through all the files and papers that are stored in that drawer until you find the one that you're looking for. So that's going to be our mass storage device in our office analogy. All right, last but not least is our motherboard. Our motherboard is what ties everything together, connects all of our hard drive components, all of our hardware components, and lets them all communicate and talk to each other. So in our office analogy, this is going to be like the building and the air in the building. Without that building, our office would just fall apart. No one would be able to talk to each other without the air and the building. So I'm going to add that to our diagram. Alright, so this is our analogy. We've got our two workers, our GPU and our CPU, carrying out the instructions that they will find either in the ROM, the RAM, or their mass storage, their hard drive or solid state drive. And depending on how fast it is, so if they're looking in the mass storage device, they have to go to their filing cabinet, that's slow. If they just have to go to their desk and search, that's the RAM, that's nice and fast. The ROM is like our tablet of stone. It can't be changed once the instructions are carved in it. So when you get your computer, the ROM already has some instructions carved into that stone tablet. And then tying everything together is our office building and the air in it. So our motherboard holds all of our components together and lets them communicate.